The void above Korath-4 shimmered with unnatural light. A massive alien fleet had emerged from a wormhole like a swarm of living steel, black hulls bristling with weapons that pulsed with violet energy. Each ship was larger than the cities below, their surfaces etched with symbols no human eye had ever seen, but the humans didn't flinch. They had heard the stories. They had survived worse. From orbit, the alien commanders watched through a lattice of holographic displays, their multifaceted eyes narrowing in frustration. Generations of their ancestors had tried and failed to conquer humans. Hundreds of planets had fallen, countless strategies tested, yet this one species persisted, undefeated, almost arrogantly so. "Do you see that?" hissed Commander Thrix, the eldest of the fleet, his voice like grinding metal. "They do not even muster a defensive fleet. They await us. Calmly. How is that possible?" His lieutenant shivered, his claws tapping nervously against the command console. Reports indicate minimal fortifications, yet every raid, every assault attempted against them, ends in catastrophe for our forces. Below, the human colony was calm. Children ran through streets of shining metal and green parks, while civilians brewed morning drinks in open-air cafes. Drones zipped lazily overhead, delivering supplies with efficiency no alien mind could predict. And at the center of it all, a single human emerged from a building, unremarkable in appearance, wearing a loose jacket and holding a steaming cup of coffee. The human paused at the edge of the colony plaza and glanced at the sky. A shiver ran through the alien fleet as sensors picked up his biosignature. One human, fully awake, fully aware, seemingly unbothered by a fleet that could obliterate continents. High above, the alien admiral sent a direct transmission. The words crackled through the vacuum. "Submit or be destroyed. Resistance is futile. Surrender within 48 hours." On Korath-4, the human took a single sip, tilted the cup casually, and muttered under his breath, 48 hours. Really? The colonists continued their morning routines, some glancing at the sky as if watching a minor light show. Even the wind seemed to respect the calm confidence that radiated from the human. Yet beneath the surface, tension coiled like a spring. The aliens would strike. They always did. But humans were different. They thrived in chaos. They adapted when entire fleets failed. And the stories, whispered among alien generals for centuries, were true. One human could unravel strategies perfected over generations. A sudden tremor shook the colony plaza as sensors detected the first strike. An unmanned drone from the alien fleet had broken through orbital defenses. Civilians gasped, scattering instinctively, but the human didn't move. He watched, unhurried, as the drone approached. In a single, fluid motion, he pressed a button on a small device tucked into his jacket. A pulse of energy rippled outward. The drone exploded in midair, shrapnel dissolving before it touched the ground. The crowd stared. Silence hung heavier than the alien threat above. In orbit, the alien fleet hesitated. Hundreds of years of conquest, meticulous planning, centuries of warfare, and yet, they could not anticipate this calm defiance. Every officer felt it. Fear. Not the fear of death, but the fear of irrelevance. Their strategies were obsolete, their weapons laughably ineffective against a single human who treated war like a minor inconvenience. Commander Thrix's voice trembled, barely audible over the alarm sirens. "This cannot be. One human against our fleet?" Meanwhile, the human adjusted his jacket, took another sip of coffee, and glanced around at the civilians, their faces a mix of awe and casual expectation. For humans, this was routine. For the galaxy, it was a warning. Above, the alien fleet began its maneuvering, preparing for a full-scale assault. But the humans didn't panic. They didn't flee. They waited, calmly, confidently. Because humans didn't just survive. Humans conquered, adapted, and thrived. And today, the galaxy would watch one human remind everyone why generations of invaders had failed before breakfast. High above Korath-4, the alien fleet shifted like a living storm, energy shields sparking as ship after ship repositioned for a coordinated strike. Within the command bridges, generals whispered frantically. Centuries of strategy were unraveling before their eyes, not through overwhelming force, but because of one human, Impossible, hissed Commander Thrix, his multi-lensed eyes scanning every readout, every simulation, every scenario. One human could not possibly resist a fleet of this magnitude. Yet the reports were unambiguous. Scouts that had slipped through orbital defenses were shredded in seconds. Entire drone swarms had been neutralized with a precision that no alien weapons system could match. And the human? He moved through his colony with a calmness that drove the fleet's officers to the brink of madness. Below in the colony plaza, the human walked among civilians, casually inspecting a damaged hover truck as if it were a minor inconvenience. Children trailed behind him, unafraid, laughing. The air shimmered with the hum of defensive drones, yet nothing in the human's demeanor suggested urgency. Legends had long circulated among alien fleets about humans, whispered in fear-laden tones. Stories of single individuals defeating entire armies, of generals disappearing under circumstances no intelligence network could explain. For centuries, these were considered myths, warnings meant to temper overconfidence. Now, for the first time, aliens saw them realized. Commander Thrix clenched a clawed hand. Prepare the fear projection arrays, psychological warfare. If he is truly exceptional, perhaps we can break him before he destroys us. On the surface, the human didn't flinch. His gaze lifted to the sky, toward the countless vessels preparing to rain fire on the colony. A smile, almost imperceptible, crossed his face. To him, these were not threats. They were opportunities. In orbit, alien analysts scrambled to study the human's patterns, trying to find weaknesses. But the data defied logic. Every move the human had made so far, every calculation, every reaction, broke through centuries of war doctrine. The fleet was not just being challenged, it was being humiliated. The human paused at the edge of the plaza and activated a small, seemingly mundane device. Energy arcs unfolded silently, invisible to the naked eye, snaking toward alien drones that had slipped past the outer shields. Within moments, the drones disintegrated mid-air, leaving only sparkling fragments. Civilians barely noticed, except for a few wide-eyed children who whispered excitedly. Another legend confirmed, muttered a young engineer in the control room, barely audible over the hum of defensive systems. The human. He does the impossible. And he's awake. From a distant asteroid field, alien scouts recorded the scene, their optics transmitting the impossible feat back to the fleet. Every command deck erupted in tension. The centuries-long arrogance of conquest was collapsing under the weight of one individual. Yet humans thrived on unpredictability. For every threat the aliens launched, there was a counterstrike invisible until the precise moment it struck. And the human, calm, composed, smiling slightly over his coffee, was already planning the next move, aware of the swarm, aware of the eyes watching from orbit, yet unfazed. Commander Thrix slammed his clawed hand onto a console, sparks flying. Divert all firepower, target, everything, he roared, voice vibrating through the command bridge. Destroy him! Meanwhile, the human glanced at a small panel, a flicker of light revealing alien ships moving into position. A soft chuckle escaped him. They really don't get it, do they? Above, the alien fleet's movement became frantic. Thousands of vessels shifted, weaving into formations that had destroyed countless worlds before. And yet, below, the human's calm remained unbroken, an unmovable anchor against a storm of galactic fury. The galaxy held its breath. Every species that had failed before watched, unseen, as the impossible unfolded. One human, armed with wit, instinct, and audacity, prepared to face what had been built over generations, a fleet determined to crush humanity. And yet, for him, it was just morning. The first shots from the alien fleet screamed across the sky, streaking like deadly comets. Energy bolts arced through the atmosphere, striking buildings and shattering hover vehicles in spectacular explosions. The ground shook, sending citizens sprawling, yet chaos never reached the human at the center of the colony. He sipped his coffee, calm as ever, eyes scanning the horizon. Above, a dozen alien fighters dove toward him, glinting violet and silver, shields humming. They expected panic, they expected fear. Instead, they found precision. With a subtle flick of his wrist, a small handheld device emitted a pulse of concentrated energy. The alien ships erupted midair in showers of incandescent metal. Sparks rained down harmlessly, scattering over rooftops like a bizarre fireworks display. Civilians froze, mouths agape. A child whispered, "He's not afraid." The human moved through the plaza, casually stepping over cracks where debris had fallen. His pace was unhurried, almost lazy, yet every step was measured, deliberate. Above, the alien fleet realized that their carefully calculated assault was failing. Every drone, every fighter, was neutralized before it could reach the ground. Even their orbital bombardments fizzled as his devices redirected or absorbed the energy. From orbit, the alien admiral gritted his teeth. "Adjust targeting. They are not responding as expected. Focus all fire on his location. Eliminate him." But the human wasn't just surviving. He was orchestrating. Drones he had constructed days ago darted through the chaos, weaving through explosions and intercepting attacks. They moved as extensions of his will, slicing enemy ships apart with surgical precision. The colony, normally quiet at this hour, was a battlefield. Smoke curled into the sky, metallic debris spun lazily through streets, and the smell of scorched machinery hung in the air. Yet the human remained untouchable, a calm eye at the center of a storm that could have leveled cities. A massive alien warship descended from orbit, dwarfing the colony below. Its energy cannons charged, brimming with destructive force capable of flattening entire city blocks. Civilians fled instinctively, but the human stood still, studying the incoming behemoth as if it were a mere nuisance. He activated a series of small, intricate devices hidden in the plaza. Beams of redirected energy struck the ship's hull at precise angles. Explosions erupted along its surface, cascading in a controlled chain reaction. The warship shuddered violently, and then, with a thunderous roar, broke apart, fragments spinning into orbit. The alien fleet froze, stunned by the spectacle. Commander Thrix's multiple eyes widened in disbelief. "This cannot be. One human is dismantling our entire strike force, alone." And yet the human didn't even raise his voice. He adjusted the sleeve of his jacket, surveyed the city like a gardener inspecting his plants, and muttered, "Breakfast time isn't over yet." The alien fleet hesitated. Their formations wavered, defensive protocols faltered, and panic spread through the ranks. Centuries of conquest, generations of preparation, all undone by one human who treated annihilation like a morning ritual. Above, scout reports filled every command bridge, entire squadrons vaporized, ground units neutralized, orbital weapons rendered useless. The legends had been true. This was the human who could not be beaten. And below, in the streets, civilians emerged from hiding, cheering silently at the displays above, not because they understood the strategy, but because they had faith. Faith in a human who had survived impossible odds for centuries. The galaxy watched in shock. Other species, who had once thought themselves invincible, noted the calm precision of a single human at the center of total destruction. And the message was clear. Humans did not just endure, they conquered, casually, methodically, before breakfast. As smoke cleared and the horizon settled into an eerie calm, the human finished his coffee. He glanced skyward, a slight smirk forming. The alien fleet would return. They always did. But for now, the morning was his. The sky had barely cleared when the first massive alien walkers descended from orbit. Towering over buildings like living mountains, their armored legs slammed into streets with earth-shattering force. Each step sent tremors rolling through the colony, sending hover cars skidding into walls and windows, shattering from sheer vibration. Civilians panicked, screaming and scattering, but the human moved with effortless calm. His coffee long finished, he surveyed the approaching giants with the same casual curiosity one might give a stray dog. Above, the alien fleet roared with confidence. "Ground units are deployed! Finish them!" Commander Thrix's voice was sharp, authoritative, but the humans below seemed unprepared only in appearance. The human pulled a small, compact device from his belt. He tapped a few sequences, and the ground trembled with an invisible pulse. The leading walker staggered, its legs locking briefly as an unseen force disrupted its hydraulics. Sparks flew from exposed joints, and it toppled forward, crushing the street in a catastrophic collapse, but leaving the humans untouched. "Begin," the human muttered, and suddenly, drones swarmed around him, small but deadly. They darted between the walker's legs, striking joints, severing cables, and causing controlled detonations. Each strike precise, deliberate, executed with surgical perfection. One by one, the massive war machines faltered, unable to anticipate a foe who treated physics and engineering as suggestions rather than limitations. Commander Thrix's claws gripped his console in fury. "They are adapting! Target the devices! Destroy them!" But the human had anticipated this. The devices hummed, channeling the walker's energy against them. A massive step triggered a shockwave that sent one walker smashing into another. The resulting chain reaction echoed like thunder through the city, debris flying in every direction. Civilians dove for cover, but even in chaos, no one died. Humans had a way of surviving destruction that made alien warriors tremble. From a high-rise, the humans surveyed the battlefield. Smoke curled into the sky, twisted metals spun like shrapnel, and the alien fleet's sensors reported unprecedented losses. And yet he didn't hurry. Each strike, each countermeasure, was executed with the calm of a morning stroll. A young engineer beside him, wide-eyed, whispered, How is he doing this?" The human glanced at her, smirked faintly, and said, "Generations of planning won't help if you forget the obvious. Humans don't just fight, they improvise." Meanwhile, Alien Command scrambled. Their walkers had been designed to flatten cities in minutes, but now they were reduced to lumbering hazards, tangled in debris, occasionally sparking as energy systems overloaded. Their pilots, trained for centuries in precise maneuvers, found themselves helpless against improvisation, adaptability, and sheer audacity. The largest walker, a towering behemoth with cannons bristling along its shoulders, raised its weapons for a decisive strike. The human casually tossed a small spherical device into its path. It hit the ground, emitted a pulsing wave of energy, and the behemoth shuddered violently. Its legs buckled, and the massive cannon spun out of control, blasting the alien fleet's remaining ships in orbit by accident. Commander Thrix screamed in rage, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the devastation below. "This is impossible! One human is destroying centuries of conquest." The human adjusted his jacket, walked through the smoke, and scanned the battlefield. The civilians now followed him, emboldened by his calm, moving like a human wave of determination through the chaos. Above, the alien fleet hesitated, unsure whether to retreat or continue. Yet every passing moment reminded them of the one constant they could never overcome. Humans were relentless, unpredictable, and unstoppable. And as the morning sun gleamed through the smoke, the human looked skyward once more, ready for whatever the galaxy would throw next. Because for humans, even the impossible was just another day. By midday, the alien fleet had regrouped above Korath 4, their formations tighter, more menacing than ever. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. The human had turned their precision strikes into a spectacle of chaos, annihilating squads, walkers, and orbital drones with seemingly effortless ease. "Prepare the orbital bombardment," Commander Thrix hissed, his claws trembling over the console. "Level the city. Flush him out. No mercy." Below, the human strolled through the city streets, surveying the damage. Buildings smoked, but no civilian had perished. Hover vehicles floated in the aftermath like fallen leaves. And somewhere in the haze, his drones scuttled like mechanical spiders, weaving between wreckage, ready for the next strike. A pulse of energy lit the sky, orbital cannons, fully charged. The fleet intended to incinerate everything in a single decisive salvo. Civilians froze, panic rising like a tide, but the human didn't flinch. He raised his hand, and a small device pulsed, projecting an invisible energy shield across the plaza. The first strike hit. The ground shook violently, sending debris flying, but the shield held. Another salvo came, and another, each explosion bouncing harmlessly off the human's protective field. Sparks rained, energy bolts screamed past, and buildings trembled, but he stood unbowed, calm, almost bored. Impossible. A young alien analyst whispered from the command bridge. The energy is being redirected. The human smiled faintly. He didn't just defend, he manipulated the battlefield. Each orbital strike was absorbed, twisted, and funneled into a network of devices scattered across the city. The energy arcs struck alien drones in orbit, dismantling them mid-flight. The fleet screamed in alarm as their own weapons turned against them. Commander Thrix slammed his clawed fist into the console. Divert all remaining firepower. Target the human directly. But humans had a talent for turning desperation into advantage. The human tapped a sequence on a wrist device, and the streets came alive. Hidden turrets emerged from rubble, firing coordinated bursts at approaching walkers. Energy nets shot skyward, ensnaring smaller ships before they could descend. Every device, every improvised mechanism was a trap, a web designed to exploit the aliens' predictability. From orbit, the largest warship tried to fire again. A pulse from the humans' devices cascaded through the fleet's energy matrix, overloading shields and sending the vessel spinning out of control. Fragments rained like meteors on the surviving walkers below, collapsing one massive machine after another. Civilians watched in awe, whispering about the human who could fight an entire fleet without breaking a sweat. Some took to helping, guided by his calm instructions. Together, they became extensions of his will, turning the city itself into a living fortress. The alien fleet, now battered and bewildered, faltered. Generations of conquest and war strategy seemed meaningless against a single species' ingenuity and resilience. Commander Thrix's rage was palpable. This cannot continue. Focus everything on him. The human tilted his head skyward, noting the approaching strike group. A soft smirk appeared on his face. They really don't learn, do they? He activated one last device, hidden beneath the plaza. It pulsed outward, invisible at first, then flaring into a cascade of controlled energy arcs. Alien ships were shredded, walkers immobilized, and orbital weapons disabled in seconds. The city, battered but alive, stood unbroken. For the first time, the alien fleet hesitated, unsure whether to retreat or continue. Every report indicated the same truth. One human, with nothing more than ingenuity, courage, and audacity, had turned an entire planetary assault into a spectacle of futility. And as the smoke cleared, the human walked through the rubble, calm as ever, a quiet declaration echoing through the minds of all who watched. Humans were not just survivors, they were unstoppable. The alien fleet, battered and humiliated, had learned one thing: brute force would not win. If they could not overwhelm the human with weapons of mass destruction, perhaps stealth and cunning could succeed where firepower had failed. Under the cover of smoke and chaos, specialized alien infiltrators slipped into Korath 4. They moved silently, their forms shifting like shadows against twisted metal and shattered glass. Cloaked in technology that masked heat signatures and sound, they were trained killers, perfect predators hunting a single prey. Inside a partially collapsed building, the human adjusted the sleeve of his jacket, listening. Civilians were huddled in what remained of a plaza, whispering nervously. He didn't panic. He didn't even frown. To him, the city was a chessboard, and every shadow a potential piece to manipulate. A faint hum in the distance, subtle, almost imperceptible, alerted him. The infiltrators were close. One misstep, one miscalculation, could cost lives. But the human had anticipated this. With a single tap on his wrist device, small drones emerged from cracks in the walls and under debris, hovering silently, scanning for anomalies. The first alien blinked into view, thinking himself unseen. A soft whirring preceded a subtle but devastating trap. The drone's microbeam sliced through the alien's cloaking field, freezing him in place before he could react. Another tried to flank, only to be ensnared in a retractable energy net that shot from a damaged streetlight. Chaos erupted for the infiltrators. The human moved with uncanny precision, guiding the drones, traps, and civilians alike. Smoke and dust clouded visibility, but he seemed to see everything, every step, every movement, every potential threat. His calm was an unshakable anchor amid the growing tension. Humans. They sense too much, muttered one alien survivor through comms, disbelief in his voice. Impossible reflexes, anticipation beyond calculation. The human didn't answer. He simply tapped another sequence. The rubble shifted, revealing hidden trenches and improvised barricades. Energy pulses snapped through the air, cutting off escape routes for the intruders, forcing them into predictable patterns. One by one, the elite assassins were neutralized without a single civilian casualty. Outside, the colony trembled as orbital ships hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. Their own infiltrators were being dismantled like toys. The human's reputation had spread like wildfire. His presence alone was enough to throw entire fleets into disarray. A young civilian, wide-eyed and terrified, asked, "How does he do it? How does he see everything?" The human smiled faintly, crouching beside her. "Humans fight with more than technology. We fight with imagination, instinct, and the refusal to be cornered." Above, Commander Thrix seethed. Generations of training, centuries of conquest, now crumbling because one human refused to play by their rules. "Recall the infiltrators. Launch full orbital lockdown." But the human had anticipated this too. Devices planted in strategic locations pulsed silently, creating interference fields that scrambled alien targeting systems. Ships fired blindly, missing every mark, while drones on the ground disabled any walker that tried to intervene. By nightfall, the shadows had retreated, leaving the city battered but unbroken. Civilians emerged cautiously, glancing at the human who had turned their fear into hope. He walked among them, calm as ever, like a morning stroll through the aftermath of war. And somewhere high above, the alien commander realized the truth he could not deny. Humans did not merely survive infiltration. They adapted, improvised, and conquered even in darkness. The lesson was clear. Underestimate a human at your own peril. The alien fleet had no patience left. Generations of conquest, decades of strategy, and billions of soldiers, all reduced to frustration by a single human. Commander Thrix's multifaceted eyes glimmered with a lethal mixture of fear and rage. "Prepare the full offensive," he commanded. "No mercy. Flatten the planet if you must. He cannot survive this." Below, the human watched from the edge of a collapsed tower, calm as ever. Civilians huddled behind barricades, their eyes wide, trusting in the unshakable presence of the human who had single-handedly rewritten the rules of engagement. The air above buzzed with alien energy. The fleet's shadows darkened the sky, massive ships casting the city in ominous patterns. The first strike came as a barrage of plasma missiles, streaking downward like falling stars. Civilians screamed, debris rained, but the human had already anticipated the trajectory. With a flick of his wrist, energy barriers erupted across the streets, absorbing and redirecting the fire. Missiles detonated harmlessly in midair, their energy redirected toward disabled walkers and unmanned ships, turning destruction into defense. "They've concentrated everything," whispered a young engineer, clinging to the human side. This should be impossible." "Nothing is impossible," the human replied calmly. "You just need to fight smarter, not harder." The alien fleet began orbital maneuvers, attempting to trap the human and his people between converging bombardments. But the city itself had become a weapon. Streets that appeared as rubble concealed energy conduits, creating channels of controlled destruction. Drones darted like lightning, striking walkers in vulnerable joints. Explosions echoed across the city, each calculated to maximize effect while minimizing civilian harm. The largest alien ship, a colossal dreadnought bristling with weapons, descended toward the human's position. Its shadow swallowed an entire district, and the ground trembled beneath its weight. Commander Thrix's voice crackled over comms. "This ends now, human. Surrender or be erased." The human did not flinch. He pressed a sequence on a device hidden beneath his feet. The city itself seemed to pulse with energy. Streets shifted, barricades rose, and a massive, unseen trap snapped shut around the dreadnought. Magnetic fields tore at its hull, engines faltered, and weapons misfired. Sparks rained from its surface as the colossal ship was caught in an invisible snare. From above, orbital weapons attempted to intervene, but the human's devices created a cascading interference field, turning precision strikes into chaotic explosions that shredded the alien fleet instead. Panic spread among alien commanders. Everything they had relied upon had been turned against them. And then, the final moment. The human stepped forward, walking calmly toward the trapped dreadnought. Small drones buzzed around him, striking key points of the ship's systems. With a soft hum, the vessel's energy core destabilized. Glowing red, then erupted in a controlled detonation that obliterated the ship without harming the city below. Commander Thrix's scream echoed across comms. "No, this cannot be. One human, just one human has undone everything." The sky cleared, smoke drifting into the fading sun. Civilians emerged, cheering, embracing one another, witnessing the improbable victory. The humans stood among them, calm, composed, as if breakfast had just ended and the world was simply another morning stroll. In that moment, the galaxy learned the final lesson. Humans did not merely fight, they adapted, improvised, and overcame, even when faced with insurmountable odds. And the moral was undeniable. Never underestimate a species that turns ingenuity, courage, and audacity into a weapon stronger than any fleet or army. The sky over Breakfasthfy burned with the aftermath of the battle. Smoke rose in ghostly plumes, streaked with the last glimmers of failing energy cores. The alien fleet had retreated, limping back to the void of space, their pride shattered, their strategies undone by one human. Civilians emerged cautiously from hiding, their faces streaked with soot and tears, but lit with awe. They whispered the same thing over and over. He did it. One human did it. The human walked through the city streets as if on a morning stroll, calm, collected, his eyes scanning every corner. Rubble crunched underfoot. Energy barriers hummed softly, and drones hovered silently, a quiet testament to the preparation that had saved them all. He paused briefly to help a child lift a fallen crate, a small act in the midst of monumental victory. Above, the remnants of the alien fleet lingered at a distance. Commander Thrix's voice crackled through distant communications, a mix of fury and disbelief. This is not over. The human will pay, planets will fall, fleets will return. Humanity cannot escape us forever." The human smiled faintly, almost amused. "Perhaps," he muttered. "But never forget, we do not fight like you expect. We do not think like you plan, and we never quit." Across the galaxy, messages began to spread. Reports of a single human who had defended an entire city, defeated an entire fleet, and outwitted generations of warriors. Allied species took note, whispers of awe and respect replacing centuries of fear. Enemies reconsidered their tactics, realizing that brute strength alone could never dominate humanity. In Breakfasthfy, reconstruction began immediately. The human guided civilians with calm efficiency, turning survival into preparation, chaos into order. Small lessons, small victories, were teaching the galaxy's youngest and oldest species alike a simple truth. Ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were humanity's greatest weapons. Commander Thrix, isolated on his flagship, watched reports flood in. Every ship accounted for, every walker destroyed, every infiltration foiled. One human had turned the galaxy's most feared war machine into a spectacle of failure. His rage was impotent, his strategies obsolete. For the first time, Thrix faced a truth his species had long denied. Humans were not merely resilient, they were unstoppable. The human's calm presence contrasted sharply with the chaos that had preceded his victory. He looked out over the city from a high vantage point, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the ruins gold and crimson. The glow of energy barriers, the hum of drones, the cautious laughter of survivors, it all spoke of hope. "Humans are not born to be controlled," he murmured. "We are born to rise, to endure, to win." And the moral of the tale was clear. The galaxy's most advanced fleets, its most ruthless strategies, could falter not because of superior weapons, but because they underestimated the human spirit. One human, with courage, imagination, and resolve, could achieve what entire civilizations could not. As night fell, Breakfasthfy glimmered with renewed life. Fires died down, shields dimmed, and drones returned to quiet standby. The human disappeared into the city, just another figure among the people he had protected, leaving behind a legacy that would ripple across star systems for generations. And somewhere in the stars, a lesson echoed for all who dared to challenge humanity. Never underestimate the species that fights with heart, wit, and an unbreakable will. One human, they learned, could change everything. Before breakfast,